Oh, slates. Go back. There we go. All right, good morning. I'll jump right in. I'm Jeff Carter from the University of New Brunswick Libraries. I'm here this morning talking about the New Brunswick Historical Newspapers Project. Represent a small but wonderful team. Some I think are online this morning back at UNB from the Microforms Department, Archives, our Digital Imaging Center, and our Systems Department. So why newspapers? I'm probably speaking to the choir here. We know there's something for everyone in newspapers, academics, researchers, and the pesky public are always asking about our newspaper collection. Currently, we have, surprise, surprise, the world's largest New Brunswick newspaper collection. UNB has been digitally preserving newspapers since 2010 from both microfilm and print. We have 3 formats currently at the library within the New Brunswick Historic Newspapers Project. We've got print, rapidly deteriorating. We have thousands of reels of microfilm. And then more recently, we have our digital collection. This is our last project iteration for newspapers in the province. I'm sure we all remember when microfilm was the future. Unfortunately, it is not the past yet. So it is very much integrated into this project. It reminds me a bit of you bought your favorite movie on VHS, then DVD and Blu-ray. Well, there will be no DVD release and there will be no Blu-ray box set. We renewed some partnerships with the Provincial Archives of New Brunswick and as well the Council of Archives of New Brunswick. The original iteration of this project was microfilming back in the 80s. That led to a print index book and eventually led to a website in the early noughts, I think. Unfortunately, it wasn't updated after 2006 because it was behind a government firewall. So that led to this current iteration. Where do we go next? And we're not microfilming anything in the province anymore. So digitization was obviously the way to go. Unfortunately, oops, did I skip a slide? Sorry, jumping. Missed a slide. So current project status, we've got over 1,075 titles indexed within the website. We've got updated holdings now from the entire province and beyond for what's on microfilm, what's in print for these historic papers. Since the last index on the website, we've added 350 new titles, some that we didn't know previously existed. We're up to 120 digitized titles now, and there's ongoing imaging. And we've recently started a partnership with the CKRN folks to share digital assets, which has been great because we don't want to duplicate the digitization. So the material conditions are obviously in bad shape. We're digging things out of storage that haven't been seen for years, trying to digitize them. Scotch tape is not your friend. And unfortunately, many of the papers do not survive digitization. So this is the floor after recent scanning. If you work in this field, obviously you're familiar with matrices like this. How do we determine what gets digitized? What's our criteria? Right now, we're working mostly in the rarity and its disintegrating area. But research priorities do bump up papers, language. I hate to say it, but we are considering copyright, I guess. We have a ton of papers we'd like to get online, but obviously they won't always be. That is why the microfilm is so heavily embedded. Library staff love digging into newspapers, bringing them out of storage. There's lots of fun finds. I'll just whip through these. This one is probably staff's favorite for some reason. The tagline to this paper is the only paper in the world, so far as we know, printed by a man with one arm. Not sure why that's so special, but so the digitization process. We're currently digitizing from two formats. The print, which you've seen snapshots of that are in very bad shape. We use a Keys Book Drive Pro. We bought a second unit in 2012. We've had a couple of iterations of cameras that we're using. We actually have a home-built system, but it works amazingly well. 2021, our St. John campus purchased an OmniScan, and they're now getting in on the act as well. We're also digitizing from microfilm. This was made possible in large part by a project with Brunswick News International. That is, or I guess was, the Irvings. As part of that project and contract, they bought us an XScan Eclipse microfilm scanner. We've since run that into the ground and replaced it with a second one. Over the 4 years of that project, we digitized 3 million pages of their major dailies. So once we have the images, the work is not over. Quality control is the next big step: cropping, rotating, scaling, generating surrogates. For us, this has been the real bottleneck. During the Irving project, we were actually able to hire additional staff. They actually wanted us and suggested that we should have a night shift for scanning, but if you know the Irvings, that makes sense, I guess. But that's the real bottleneck for us, and it is now because we don't have those extra bodies that we were able to hire during that project. Images are put into folders for titles, unique folders for each issue, and then the images are numbered for the page numbers that they would have been. Each folder then gets metadata for tracking publication date, title, volume, issue, alternative titles, errata. Not uncommon for these old titles to have the wrong date or the wrong volume, issue number printed on them. Processing the images for display on the website. So the post-scan adjustment process, Jacob Sanford, back at UNB, he built us the systems toolkit for ingesting the images. It's basically a 5-step process. I'm just going to whip through it here. It'll all be on the slides if you want to look it up later. Step 1, issue discovery. We loop through all the subdirectories. We convert the metadata to JSON. Then step 2 is the OCRing. We're running Tesseract. We generate the OCR for each page. Third step, once the OCR is complete, we create each issue by posting to the Drupal REST API. We add the OCR, and we add a marker to know if it's done. Fourth step, if you're familiar with this landscape, you need to generate DZI tiles for zooming. Without DZI tiles, we recently discovered you couldn't view our high-res images on an iPad or an iPhone even. So they're critical. And then lastly, obviously, there's an audit phase to make sure we ingested and posted what we wanted to put up. We're running a fairly hefty server to do this, but it's not super intensive. It's about 30-40 seconds a page to ingest. We can scale this horizontally, but we haven't needed to at this point. The bottleneck right now is really at the quality control phase. Lots of numbers about OCR accuracy and in time investment in terms of that QC, if you're interested. The website's built in Drupal 9 currently. Custom entities, has a solar search, custom theme. It's all on GitHub if you're interested. There's 2 types of search because we're supporting microfilm as well as print and the full text. I probably won't get through all these slides in less than a minute. But you can search by title. There's lots of faceting, lots of faceting options there. You can facet by the holdings type. What do we got there? Oh, year and language. And then finally, more recently, you can actually facet by the holdings institution. So we've been getting holdings from around the province. So if you're in Bathurst, you can actually see what papers are held locally. in Bathurst. We have very extensive publication records, and then there's full text searching for the 120 titles that have been digitized to date. And you can sort those by relevance or by date. There's issue browsing. You can facet that by decade or down to the year. And then finally, like I said, we run OpenSeaDragon to deliver the final assets to the user. Did I make it?